Alright, welcome back for another replay cast. Playing as Nurgle again here. We're on Broken Leg Gully and we are facing the Lizardmen. So, this time coming in, I wasn't sure what to expect from my opponent. I was thinking that they might have a decently heavy infantry build. You can see from his initial roster that he did not bring too many infantry starting up. He had a lot of large monsters, but I was thinking he might be heavy while I was picking my my roster, and so I went for a lot of ground holding troops. So, for example, these Plague Bears of Nurgle and the Chaos Warriors, I figured these guys would be able to withhold missile damage, and these guys would be able to stay in melee combat for a while. So I would get mobs of those guys to start off. Again, three Chaos Warriors up front, 2 Plague Warriors in the middle, 1 on the flank, so 3 of each of those. 3 squads of Marauder Horsemen of Nurgle with throwing axes, and then Chaos Sorcerer Lord. I brought the Lord of Death this time. So we've got Soul Blight, Fate of Buna, Spirit Leech. I figured Spirit Leech I could use on big single entity monsters. Fate of Buna if they send Ripperdactyls or something like that. And Soul Blight in case he has a high armor single entity troop that I want to deal with. So for my opponent, he's got Oxyotl. This is a lord that I'm not familiar with. I've never played as the Lizardmen, so he's missile specialist, scaling damage. I've never seen that before. But so he's going to be shooting missiles around, armor piercing. Looks like he's got a skink oracle riding a big dinosaur-looking thing. I'm not sure what the mount is called, but he's got anti-large missiles, poison damage, armor-piercing melee. Razordon hunting pack. Let's see, Salamander hunting pack. So it's 2 regiments of renown, Croxagores, and Ripperdactyls. And these are the types of units that I was bringing Fate of Buna for. And so let's get into it. I'll fast forward a little bit on the approach. Now that we're getting close. I figured he was going to start shooting or casting spells, so you can see I started issuing commands with my Lord to move around and try to dodge stuff. Him running straight in there is not really worth it. I really wanted to keep my Lord out of the melee. He ends up getting hit by a fireball from the Skink Oracle, so no luck dodging there. Marauder Horsemen coming down the hill. Chaos Warriors coming up front. I staggered my Plague Bears back a little bit to make sure that they didn't get blown up by any type of nasty area of effect spells or explosive damage or anything like that on the approach. Earlier, while they were marching forward, some of my Plague Bears were kind of mixed into the Chaos Warriors because they had more speed, but ended up sorting that out. Razordon hunting pack, getting some shots off, threatening to get in the middle, but I sent my Marauder Horsemen in, and this squad's getting chased off just from all the shots from the Salamander packs and Razordon hunting packs. But luckily, I'm starting to get some guys on the point. Not a fight I want to be in. Those guys should get pulled back. These guys are being chased off by the Razordon hunting pack. So unfortunately, decently big loss there. You can see he's got a lot of gold value damage from the initial projectiles that he's got off. I didn't want these guys to run off the point, so I made sure they didn't go all the way up the hill and go on like a chasing mission. You see I'm kind of trying to get guys separated a little bit, but taking spots on the point just so get capture weight there. Got a Spirit Leech off on the Skink Oracle, and these guys are running back. Don't want to have these guys stacked on top of each other, especially when there's a guy charging through and they've got as much shooting as they do. Ripperdactyl riders going to my Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, so that's not great. They don't have what's it called? For some reason I was thinking these guys had anti-large, but they have anti-infantry, so that's not good for my Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, especially since they have armor piercing as well. Now, I saw the Croxagores come in who are also anti-infantry, and this guy definitely brought a lot of anti-infantry stuff. I figured next time I face Lizardmen, I'll probably try to bring some cavalry as well, outside of just axe throwers. These guys, maybe not the best use of them running them up front, but I wanted to give these guys some different targets and just try to get some forward pressure on them. Rot flies coming in, attacking the Croxagores. I needed some kind of armor piercing damage to deal with smaller model count troops, so I brought Rot flies. I think I'm going to play a little bit more around with Rot flies in the other, I think they're called like Plague Heralds or something like that, or Heralds of Nurgle, something like that. There's another flying unit that's a little bit more expensive than these guys, a little better damage and whatnot. But I'm going to play around with using them for dealing with single entity and low model count troops, like Ripperdactyls, Feral Stegodons, and whatever. And mostly just fighting over point 2 here. I got point 3 captured. He got point 1 captured. Actually he didn't yet. I just noticed that he didn't even have that this early in the match. But he'll pick that up shortly. He's got 2 squads of Cold One Riders, armor piercing, shielded, coming up the hill. Ripperdactyl still giving my Chaos Warriors the beat down, but at least these guys are holding ground for a little bit of time. I did get the capture weight on this, so I've captured it. And my Rot Flies and my Exalted Hero, who I summoned in, are now chasing off these Croxagores. I got my Lord in the battle as well. He doesn't have armor piercing damage, but he does enough that he can at least contribute to that a little bit. Another squad of Rot Flies in. And at this point, it's time to sit on point 2. They're not doing anything to threaten point 3. That's why I ended up bringing these Plague Bears over this way. And really just trying to blob fight on point 2. Part of my strategy for this match was focusing more on the victory points that I had previously, getting units that can hold ground well, especially these Plague Bears. That's part of the reason I brought 3 squads of these guys, and just sitting on the point and accepting that I might end up taking bad trades. You can see I'm about 2,000 behind on value, but still got a decent amount of troops, 12 to 13 on the field right now, and I've chased off some of their guys. Unfortunately, I have some units stacking here. That's not so good, especially when they're getting shot at by Regiments of Renown, Salamander Hunting Pack. They got explosive damage, I'm quite sure. Yep, so they got explosive damage on those guys. Chaos Warriors regaining their leadership. I'll have to turn them back around. Brought another squad of Marauder Horsemen. And at this point, I had kind of accepted that the main things I'm going to be able to deal damage against them with is going to be my Rot Flies, my Exalted Heroes. I've got 2 of them now. I prioritized getting those guys on the field because I saw how many single entity monsters he had between the Stegodons, the Razordons, the Salamanders, his Ripperdactyls. I needed to get high damage dealing, low model count units out on the field. So Exalted Heroes, Marauder Horsemen, Rot Flies, those are going to be my damage dealers during this match. You can see he's got the Skink Oracle matched up here. I got my Lord and an Exalted Hero going on him, trying to get a blob around him with the Plague Bears. This Exalted Hero is chasing off this Feral Stegodon. I used that kind of gain to jump on him earlier. That's what chased him off and did all that health damage. Again, 2 Exalted Heroes and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Charging back in with the Ripperdactyls. Just a big blob on this point. Get another soul, or what's it called? Spirit Leech. I keep forgetting what is that spell called. Yep, Spirit Leech upgraded on him. And he's got Cold One Riders charging downhill. And not too much else going on. He's got this back point, but this blob fight is just going to continue. When I saw these guys, these skink cohorts coming around this hillside, I figured I was going to need to save up some points and get some infantry up there. I didn't think that getting more Marauder Horsemen or the Chaos Warhounds up here was going to do much. They just wouldn't be able to fight these guys in straight up combat, especially trying to get capture weight on a point. So that was kind of lost for the time being, but I was quite a bit ahead, mostly because he had forgotten to capture point 1 earlier in the match. Either that or he just deprioritized that. So Rot Flies on top of Cold One Riders, not a bad trade, but these guys are going to lose out, as you can see, starting to crumble, or yeah, I guess that's what you'd consider it. And the good thing is that I got Plague Bears sitting on this point here, here, and here. So 3 of them. Both of my Exalted Warriors are still there, as well as my Chaos Sorcerer. And just holding ground here. You saw I had the another squad of what's it called? Chaos Warriors with great weapons coming uphill. And man, just watching the replays really reminds me of how slow the Nurgle roster is. It's really important to get on top of the point and make sure you've got something there. The squad of Plague Bears that I brought downhill, I probably could have left here, and that would have been good, but, you know, lesson learned, charging in with these guys. And these Chaos Warriors and Nurgle with great weapons are going to deal with these cohorts pretty handily. They've got high model counts, so it'll take some time, but, you know. So there goes that. Chopping them down. Blob fight continues. Now my Lord and my heroes are starting to get worn down at this point. I think I used the Fate of Buna on the Croxagores because these guys are just dealing a lot of damage. Armor piercing, anti-infantry. And I just wanted to get them off this point. Again, really focusing on using Fate of Buna on these high value targets like Croxagores, the Salamanders, the Razordons and whatnot. And just keeping my goon squad together. 2 Exalted Heroes and the Sorcerer all together. Supporting each other. Popping their heroic killing blow when I can. You know, Spirit Leech, Fate of Buna. I really didn't use Soul Blight too much this match. So I probably could have saved some money and not brought that, but as I get more familiar with the spells and more comfortable on figuring out when to cast them, I'll probably diversify a little bit more. I oftentimes bring Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech, regardless of the matchup, because those are just spells that I'm familiar with. I know how to get consistent utility out of them, but I'm sure it's nice to mix it up every once in a while with the spells that you bring. The game seems to be decently balanced. I know Nurgle and some of these other factions have pretty horrible win rates in a competitive environment, but who knows? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about since I'm somewhat new to multiplayer. I'm sure people have their opinions on the balancing of the game, especially when they end up fighting someone playing as the the Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast. But they had Cold One Riders coming around this backside, coming to the hill, and I ended up jumping on top of them with my Rot Flies and these Chaos Warhounds. Not Exalted, but Plague Bear starting to get worn down. My Exalted Heroes and my Sorcerer are starting to get chased off. Unfortunately, they are just not able to deal with all these single entity monsters. Feral Stegodon, Oxyotl, a lot of missile damage here. Skink Oracle, a lot of missile damage there. Croxagores with the anti-infantry. Skink Chief with the poisonous. Ranged attacks, decently high damage, even though it's not armor piercing. And just a lot of shooting that he had. So at this point, I'm getting chased off at point 2. Point 3, have still not taken it back. I was able to chase off one of those skink cohorts. Sent some Marauders to get some throwing axes in on them. I lost focus of these guys, and they ended up charging in with the skink cohort. So I figured I'd flank around with a squad of the Chaos Warhounds, try to crack their morale and get on top of this point. I did notice that my Chaos Warriors were chasing the other squad of skinks off and up that hill into the woods, so I brought them down to get some capture weight on. And at this point, I saw this group of troops coming over the hillside, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" You know, I wasn't quite sure how doable it was going to be to keep anything on top of point 2. But when I saw this coming, I was kind of the opinion like, all right, things are not looking too great. He's got almost twice as many units on the field as me, as far as unit cards. And he's over 4,000 ahead of me in the value trading, and I couldn't see this at the time, but he's got a lot of supplies saved up, so he can kind of bring in whatever he wants to. Unfortunately, Chaos Warriors, I had them on a move command headed this way, and so they ended up getting jumped by the Cold One Riders on a back, so they couldn't brace or anything. So I figured I'd run my Marauder Horsemen around the sides, because he issued an attack command for all these troops onto these Chaos Warriors. So I got these guys around the flanks, start throwing some axes in there, and Warhounds as well on the sides, coming around the flanks. Unfortunately, he has more swords with shields coming to support, and most of my troops down here are getting chased off and are not going to be able to hold this point. So that's going to get taken over by them. You can see it, me losing the victory point there from the red arrow going down, and he's just chasing off my troops, Exalted Heroes. That is one thing I'm noticing with the high value models, because of how slow the Nurgle roster is. you really got to be careful with what areas you start losing fights in and getting out of them as soon as you can. So although I have a full surround here, I got throwing axes coming in, Chaos Warhounds charging from both sides. He just had too many troops in here. You know, he's got the Skinks with like okay-ish armor, but 2 squads of Colwyn Riders, and then Saurus Warriors with shields coming in to support. I didn't have quite enough armor-piercing damage, enough damage output to deal with that blob as they came over and just crashed on a .3. And unfortunately, at this point, I was looking at the card count and at the victory points and at the state of the battlefield, and kind of just accepted that this was not going to be a match I was going to turn around, even if I could save up some points and summon in some new stuff. You know, he's 5,000 ahead in damage value, literally 50% ahead of me in the damage value. And although I got a pretty good amount of victory points early on and was doing good at holding here, was just not able to deal with his roster. I didn't even feel like I handled my troops that badly, but you know, probably just got to work on my drafting and figuring out what units to pick. So well played to my opponent. Looking at my layout in hindsight, I could have brought a lot less infantry and brought some more damage dealers. So I think if I cut, say, one group of Plague Bearers, one group of the Chaos Warriors, and maybe some Marauder Horsemen, I could have brought, say, 2 squads of Exalted Plague Bearers and get some of those big projectile damage and decent holding in melee. And as far as my reinforcements, less Warhounds, maybe only 2 squads of these guys, and less of the Great Weapon Chaos Warriors. The Exalted Heroes, I think, were super necessary. They didn't get great value, but you know, if you don't have a good overall roster, some of your troops that may have shined otherwise won't really get the opportunity to. So just some thoughts on my troop drafting based on this faction matchup. Real quick look at the unit stats. You can see all these guys. The Plague Bearers did not do bad, but Chaos Warriors did horribly. None of these guys were going to perform against any of the stuff that he brought. Marauder Horsemen did good. Not too surprised there. Exalted Heroes did alright. Chaos Warriors and Nurgle didn't do much. Rotflies did actually somewhat decent. These guys got brought in late. But, you know, somewhat decent. And Warhounds, excuse me, pretty horribly, but the Warhounds didn't get put in any good situations anyways. So Oxyotl did 2,000 worth. The Skink Oracle, I'm assuming he did not cost as much. He probably did pretty good for his value. Pretty good shooting value. These guys got less than I would have thought they did. Croxagores, big damage dealing. Skink Chief is alright. Feral Stegonauts didn't do as much as I thought they would have, but nothing too special going on with anything else there. So again, good play to my opponent. Definitely some lessons learned there, and I'll see you on the next replay.